Hey IndieCade, my name is Jihong Min, one half of False World Games and lead designer and artist of Imber.
And I'm Connor Donovan, the other half of False World Games, and also an artist and designer working on the game.
So to start things off, I figured I'd answer the question, what is Imber? Imber is a 9-month long passion project that originally started as a school project for a course at the University of California, Santa Cruz. Imber is a combination of two words, umber meaning dark, and ember, a source of light. Imber is an asymmetrical dungeon exploring game as well as a dungeon building game. As players of Imber, one side dons the mask of hunters, raiding a newly formed dungeon for the promise of gold and powerful items. Unfortunately for them, the dungeon grows stronger with every death, and therefore as the other side, the dungeon keeper grows stronger and wiser as time passes. At some point, the hunters have gone too far, and the dungeon realizes the presence of the raiders. Not wanting precious dungeon resources to escape, the dungeon keeper begins collapsing the dungeon from the inside. Hunters will need to minimize losses and maximize gains before escaping from the collapse. Initial development started October 10th of 2017, so fall 2017. This was when, basically the assignment was assigned within class, and the mood board for the initial game development was created. So the original game card layouts were developed, and it was in its draft infancy stage by the end of October. By the end of October, though, I realized that this version one was, well, not even version one. Version zero was very, very bad. So I quickly iterated into version 0.5, and that was basically Kanata. By November, I had the cards ordered, and then by December, I had the final game submitted. And this was the game that basically showed up at Sammy Showcase, and was the version that I received interest for. So by this point, I had created some games, and I kind of understood like what kind of work would be required to take this game and actually put it on market. But I knew for a fact that I couldn't do it by myself. So I asked around a little bit, trying to find people who were possibly interested in making a card game for free because I wasn't even paying myself. So how could I pay someone else? And you popped up.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, that's around the time I joined the project. Is after I learned about it from seeing from bringing you to the Sammy Showcase and some stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you sort of
And
recruited
up
me
until
around that
this point, like you hadn't made any games. You've only
Yeah, it was
played games.
completely new to me.
So I think going into the project, we were both sort of unsure of how the game would turn out, but we knew for a fact that this version one that I had created in 3 months basically
Yeah,
was not good.
it felt promising though. When I joined the project, I felt like there was something there that we could work on.
I mean, I would hope so.
Yeah.
The going into the project, we had a good base, which was good.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of things about the game that we needed to change, and we slowly started to change things. By September, we had what we consider as a version 2. In this version, we changed from rectangular cards to square cards because we found out that you could do square cards. And we had also added, reworked items, monsters, and different events that players could interact with. At this point, the game was, sort of similar to the version 1, but it's different in terms of how players could interact with it.
It was sort of a refinement of version one as opposed to a wholly new rules layout, like some of rules kind of thing, like some of the later versions became.
Right. There were features in our version 1 that we wanted to keep, namely sort of dungeon creation aspect of the game. And we managed to keep that through all the different versions. But in this version, unfortunately, things like dying or losing on your second turn were still a possibility. Everything was randomized, and the level of randomization in our version 2 was considerably frustrating for a lot of our playtesters.
It carried the main issue with version 2 is that it carried a lot of a lot of the negatives of version 1 along with it. It was, as I said, more of a refinement of what we improved on the good parts, but we kept a lot of the negatives.
What was valuable for us going forward from version 2 was to remove the negatives that were in version 2 and make a version 3. For example, one of the negatives that we had in version 2 was that the Dungeon Keeper felt as if they always had nothing to do. So to increase the productivity or increase the abilities of the Dungeon Keeper, we added basically a variety of different cards and different abilities. Like in this version 3, you could spawn in a champion, and the champion would chase down hunters.
Yes.
Yeah, but unfortunately in this version, it was still sort of like a 1v1,
Yeah.
two-player competitive game.
We really struggled with bringing multiplayer into it with the 4 hunters that we have in our current version. That took a lot of thinking to get working.
It's still a struggle. Like I think we can say to
Yeah,
have five
totally
players.
fair.
The number one thing is that it's harder to find playtesters for 5 people than it is to find playtesters for 2 people. But we would both agree that it's probably an improvement.
Yeah, it seemed. I would definitely agree with that. When it was limited to 2 players, it always felt a little bit weird. Like, what niche is this going to occupy? Like, who's actually going to play this? Is it like a chess? Are we competing with chess? Like, what is this? But with 5 players, it feels more like something that you could do with your friends and just kind of like hang out and play. You know?
And I think some of the features and some of the rule modifications that we made for version 5, especially allowing for more players, is something that, encourages multiple playthroughs and encourages, people working together. Something that I probably definitely wouldn't have thought when I originally made the game.
Mm-hmm.
So, version 3, production. Well, version 3 ended in December of 2018, and then from then on we worked on version 4. Version 4 was a bit of a miss. We had gone to a public playtesting event, and there we'd received feedback that our game was boring. And it was very harsh news, but at the same time it was very gratifying to hear that, this is what the public thinks about our game. So we made some modifications that probably weren't in the best interest of our game, and unfortunately, we sat on that for about 3 months, right?
I think we did we did one playtest of that version with pretty much the same assets we had for the previous one, just same cards and stuff, just using the new rules. And it, suffice to say, it did not go well. It just wasn't fun.
That being said, we had sort of a reflection or a post-mortem about whether version 4 was the game that we wanted to go through with. And the answer was unanimously no. So we started production on version 5 maybe 4 or 5 weeks before the first IndieCade shut off. And it was a pretty much mad dash to make sure that the game was playable before we submitted it.
Really proud of how it turned out, though, at least so far.
Yeah, the current game is basically it's almost mirrored to version 1, which is like there's a dungeon keeper still. There are people that explore the dungeon still, but we've increased the number of players, we've increased the number of interactions. There's currently 168 cards, almost 90 of them are used to create the dungeon, and Another 50 or so are used to as treasure items that the hunters can, gather. Uh, Due to the fact that there's so many cards but so little movement, each playthrough of the game is different, and this is one of the things that we managed to keep through our versions. This aspect of replayability.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's it was the core concept when we started this game, and though we've had a lot of versions in between then and now, it's what we've stuck with in every single one, and what we've based the mechanics around, trying to increase the enjoyability of that aspect of it over over any other priority.